Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. With me, as always, my co-host on the flagship podcast, The Standard, is The Standard, Lance Williams, out on the West Coast. It's early morning. He's got his coffee cup. What's up, Lance?
Hola, listeners. Welcome. May the belated 4th be with you. See, I got my coffee cup here. What's happening? May the 4th be with you.
Unless you're referencing the movie Spaceballs, I am completely clueless as to what you're talking about. But anyways, that's a great movie, by the way. And I've never seen a Star Wars movie. We've talked about that on this show. I've talked about it on other shows. But I have seen Spaceballs. I know almost every word of that movie. You love that movie, right?
I've never seen Spaceballs, but I have seen this movie that I'm showing in YouTube, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, episode 4, 5, and 6. Jeff, never tell anyone you've seen Spaceballs and not Star Wars. Space Nads. Come on, man. Space Nads.
Spaceballs is Mel Brooks at his finest. It is hysterical. Absolutely hysterical. Anyways, I don't want to derail the show. Let's get off to the Steelers talk. We have a lot of stuff we want to talk about today. The NFL draft is officially 1 week old. We will talk about the draft class and expectations there. But before we get into this, I want to mention a lot of people in our live chat on YouTube. And if you didn't know we have a YouTube channel, find us on YouTube. Go to BTSC Steelers Radio. Subscribe, like. We appreciate all the love there. A lot of people don't realize that Lance does his own show, but it's not on YouTube. It's on our audio platform. And they always say, how do we find it? Just go to our audio platforms. Anywhere you download podcasts, search Behind the Steel Curtain, Steelers, even SB Nation, you might be able to find us that way. And you'll be able to find our audio with 5 shows a week, where only 3 of those are on YouTube. But this week, Lance dove into the numbers of the Ben Roethlisberger contract, because last week we had just come off the draft and we totally forgot to talk about how Ben Roethlisberger gave the Steelers, well, anything but a hometown discount. We'll put it that way. So, Lance, go ahead and give us the crux of your show. If you listen to the show, you know what it was about. And he's got some really good numbers for us. Go ahead, Lance.
Before I get into the contract numbers, I will be on YouTube soon, so I can capture that above 38 female demographic. You know, my sexiness and my voice would just pull in all of those listeners, so I can get that above 38 female demographic. But when it comes to Ben's contract numbers, and I'm reading them straight off of overthecap.com, it says the following: Ben Roethlisberger signed a 2-year contract extension last week, or a couple weeks ago. The contract is worth $68 million, with a $37.5 million guaranteed at signing via signing bonus. That means that'll be prorated over the course of the deal. Roethlisberger can earn a $12.5 million roster bonus on the 3rd day of the 2020 league year, a $15 million roster bonus on the 3rd day of the 2021 league year, and the extension increases Roethlisberger's 2019 cap charge by $3 million. No home discount there, buddy.
Nah, not at all. But we talked about this. When it was, the rumors were they're going to sign they're going to sign him, they're going to get a new deal done. We said this, and that is that this is probably his last contract. Now, I understand that Kevin Colbert this week said there's no expiration date. I've used that in air quotes there, in terms of him possibly getting another extension. We both doubt that. Will you agree with me? You doubt that he's going to get another deal.
I doubt that. And the use of expiration date is an interesting term, because there's no guarantee that Kevin Colbert will even be around to give him said extension. So there's no expiration dates and there's no guarantees in sports. So the use of that phraseology I thought was very curious.
Well, and you have the numbers there. I'd be curious to see what the dead cap hit would be if they decide to, let's say he retires after 2 years, so after only 1 year of the extension, or if they decide to cut him loose. I doubt that would happen, but if they did, what is that? Do you have that number in front of you?
Let me give you those numbers. So in 2019, if he were to be cut pre-June 1st, the dead money charge would be $48.7 million.
Oh, man.
So, and the cap savings would be a negative $22.5 million. So needless to say, he's cap protected.
Yes. What
Even in the second year, he's cap protected. The dead money charge would be $25 million, and the cap savings would be 8.5. When it's tilted that much,
Yeah.
that's cap protection.
Well, some would say Antonio Brown was cap protected too.
Unless you're Antonio Brown.
That turd. Anyways, this is just a random question, and I don't know the answer. Maybe you do. Does retirement change that at all? Let's say he decides, let's say in not this year, but next year, the Steelers win the Super Bowl. And he says, I'm holding the third Lombardi that I brought to the Steelers. I'm done. I'm peacing out. See you later. What does that do for the salary cap?
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. If Ian Whetstone out there is listening to the program, it all rolls up. You take the proration in 1 year. You never lose proration, so that always is going to hit your cap. Now, all of the roster, all of the paragraph 5, the salary, all that stuff comes off your books, but all of the proration rolls up.
Okay.
So, in essence, if he retired, let's say he retired after 2019. They would get hit with a $37.5 million dead cap charge.
What about the year after? The second year.
So the second year, the dead money is $25 million, the cap savings is 8.5. The last year, the dead money is 12.5, and the cap savings is 19 million. That's when it's favorable for the Steelers to move on if he can no longer play very well.
Okay.
Now that will be the interesting year for your guy, Mason, if he shows what they want him to show. That's the year that you possibly move Ben Roethlisberger out of there. But that won't happen.
No, it's not going to happen. But, I wrote an article, and I want to get your take on it. And I said that, the article was titled, What the New Ben Roethlisberger Contract Means for Mason Rudolph. And it was all about how their contracts are going to be coming to an end at the same time. Rudolph's rookie deal and the extension that Roethlisberger just signed are going to come to a close at the same time. And so a lot of people view that as, well, what are they going to do then? Well, if they're smart and if they like what they see from Mason Rudolph and the progression he's made, they could easily, in my opinion, sign him to a deal that in terms of quarterback money is very team friendly. They could give him that deal after next season, before Roethlisberger's last year, before he reaches that last year of his rookie deal. And that could lock him up for, give him a 3-year deal, something like that. And you're then extending that quarterback tree. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's reasonable, or would you say they're not going to worry about that until Ben's done?
I don't think they're going to worry about it till Ben's done. I mean, they're extending Ben out 3 years. And we thought that, when we thought that 2021 would be his last year. It's just hard to say. I mean, there's no expectation that Rudolph is going to start anytime soon. And in fact, he was the third string guy last year. So I think his future with the Steelers is cloudy. It's fuzzy at best. They're going with their franchise guy. They'll see what it is over the course of the next 3 seasons. They'll let it play out and let it take its course. And they'll look at his practice, his tape, how he practices, how he plays in preseason. So if he plays well, presumably that could happen. But now I don't even think it's a concern for them.
Okay, so let's go back to the Roethlisberger deal. After you look at the numbers, after you look at everything that we now know about this extension, you like the deal, fair deal, honest deal, or do you think, man, Steelers got hosed in this one?
It's just a quarterback deal. I mean, this is what happens when quarterbacks win Super Bowls and they're the face of your franchise. Look at these cap hits. So the cap hit this year, 26.2, next year, 33.5, and the following year, 31.5. In 2020, he's going to represent 17% of the cap. I mean, that's just what happens. And I'll give you some more numbers. Career earnings after 2019, Drew Brees, $249 million. Peyton Manning, $249 million. Ben Roethlisberger, $234. Eli, $230. Matt Ryan, $226. Tom Brady, $222. Aaron Rodgers, $220. Phillip Rivers, $216. The one thing that you notice when I speak of all these guys, they're over $200 million, and a majority of them have won multiple Super Bowls, Tom Brady being the guy that's won 6. If you have a guy that wins Super Bowls and multiple Super Bowls, you're going to pay in excess of $200 million over the course of their career. That's what it is.
No, I agree with you. Did you hear that some of these new contracts, players are wanting a certain portion of the salary cap? Have you heard that?
Yes. Yes.
So that's interesting
Absolutely.
that you bring up those numbers because, yeah, I think it's really interesting there. But
I mean, 17% of a cap is big. I mean, that's a big chunk. That's a big chunk. That's almost 20% of the cap. I mean, that's a huge chunk. And the point is, I mean, quarterbacks, especially franchise quarterbacks, guys that win Super Bowls, I mean, they don't have to play fair in negotiations. And what are you
right.
going to do? And what are you going to do? He asked for more. I mean, what are you going to do? Nah, I'm going to play hardball. We're going to go 4-12. I'm going to be an owner and go to the games. I'm going to look out and see nobody in the seats. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, you want to pay these guys. These guys want to play for you. They help you win games, pay them, and keep it moving.
So Ben Roethlisberger, he's locked up. I thought it was a deal that had to be done. Like you said, it's a quarterback deal. I mean, it's very manageable in terms. And the thing is, people want to talk about salary cap space. Next year, it's going to be a completely different bag of worms based on the fact that Antonio Brown's dead money will be off the books. They'll have more freedom, more flexibility. So when people talk about these cap hits and you're hearing like the number 30, you're thinking, oh my gosh, it's only $4 million more than what he's putting towards the cap this year. And that dead money from Brown will be gone. They'll be able to manage things a little bit different. They're going to have some big free agents coming up after the season, but that's a conversation for a whole nother time. So let's talk about the NFL draft class because a lot of people, that's what they want to hear. Like I said, it's just a week old. I wrote an article that published this morning. This is being recorded on Sunday. It was my letter from the editor, and it was all about how every year fans fall in love with these draft picks. They fall in love with the potential, the stories, the college film. I used Tyler Matakovich as a perfect example. When he was at Temple, he was drafted as the seventh round pick. It was their last draft pick they spent on Tyler Matakovich from Temple. And they looked at first, everyone's like, who is this kid? And so they look him up. He was an all AAC, I think, defensive player. He won a couple linebacker awards. He was a tackling machine, and everyone just fell in love with him. They find out his nickname's Dirty Red. Oh my gosh, this guy's great. And everyone said the whole time when they were bashing Ryan Shazier was, maybe we should give Matakovich a chance. Well, Shazier goes down. Matakovich gets in there. What do we see? An instinctual linebacker that doesn't have the athleticism to match the instincts, and he gets abused. He's a special teams guy. That's it. He's a depth piece, and he plays special teams. And so I think if we all would have had those expectations a little bit, it would have helped a lot. So what I want to do is I want to go through the 9 players drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I want to ask Lance, what would be not his personal expectation? You can do both, I guess. What should the fans' expectations be for this player as the 2019 season gets closer? Because coming up in a week or so, I think might be 2 weeks, the Steelers will start their offseason workouts, the OTAs, rookie minicamp, and things of that nature. All right, so you ready, Lance?
Yes. Before we do it, though, let me give a big shout out to Dirty Red. He's a hell of a dancer. The clips that came out of him dancing at Ryan Shazier's wedding, he was quite inebriated. He's a great drunk dancer. And also, man, again, anytime I can give love and a big shout out to Ryan Shazier, I'm going to take every opportunity to do it. Watching the video of him dancing at his wedding, I mean, it's just, every time I see that, shoot, I want to tear up every time I see Ryan Shazier break through another physical breakthrough. I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, I don't know how it makes you feel, Jeff, but I'm just inspired every time I see video clips of Ryan Shazier getting closer and closer and closer to living his life like it used to be.
Absolutely. And yeah, you saw him dancing with his wife, and it's good to see. It's good to see. And like I said, a lot of people will honestly have the question of shouldn't he play? It's not important right now. Just not important right now. He's not playing in 2019 because they put him on the reserve / physically unable to perform list. So it's a moot point. Let him live his life. Let him continue to rehab, and we'll see where the chips fall when they get to that decision, which won't be until next season. Okay, let's talk about expectations. Round one, the Steelers took Devin Bush. Everyone knows that. What are your expectations, and what should the fans' expectations be for the Michigan inside linebacker?
I think the expectation should be by about the middle of the season. Let's say, maybe game 6, he's probably penciled in as a starter. In the first 6 games, he's a contributor on special teams and in sub packages. And I think the expectation is that you see the physical flashes and big splash plays that you see in college, and that you come out of the first season with the expectation that in his second year, he's going to be the Steelers starting inside linebacker. And you should come out of this first year with the warm, fuzzy feeling that we've got a player here. This kid is going to be good. He's going to be everything that we saw at Michigan. But have the expectation that he's going to have his ups and downs this year. But you see enough physical flashes to have the thought that you had about Kendrell Bell. If you guys remember Kendrell Bell, you should have the same feeling about Devin Bush going into that second season that you had about Kendrell Bell. Now, he may not become the NFL or AFC Defensive Rookie of the Year, but you should feel really warm and fuzzy about Devin Bush going into his second season.
Okay, so and is that your expectation as well, or did you just lay those out for the fan base?
That's my expectation.
Okay, very good. And I agree. I agree 100%, although I do think he'll start earlier than week 6.
Okay.
I think he's going to start week 1, personally.
They're going to give him every opportunity to, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, as they should. And and we talked about it on the Steelers preview this past week. I went on to saying is I think that, and I guess we'll take a quick sidebar here. If it's up to me, the player that will be losing playing time the most isn't Mark Barron. I think it's going to be Vince Williams, because I could see Barron and Bush being on the field for specific, especially dime coverages, things of that nature. I could see Vince Williams coming off the field more and more. You agree or disagree?
I agree 100%. And I think we said this earlier. We may have on an earlier show that it wasn't really about the Bostic cut. I mean, we all knew that Bostic was probably going to get cut. He was probably going to get cut anyway with them signing Barron only. Yeah. The issue was with Vince Williams. I mean, in sub-package football, if you have 2 really good coverage linebackers, you're going to take Vince off the field. And that's what they play now, is they play a majority of subs. I could see Vince still playing in nickel at times, but if they go dime, he's absolutely not playing in dime. And Vince Williams his snap count is going to really get cut. It's just where the game is now. And if you have 2 coverage inside linebackers, you're a much more multiple and a much more versatile defense, and you can do more pattern matching with wide receivers with your inside linebackers or with your tight ends. You can match it up better, and it'll be interesting. And I think a lot of pressure will also be on Kevin Colbert, because Kevin Colbert will have 2 coverage inside linebackers to give him possibly the flexibility to do more things and maybe even do what he wants to do or he's wanted to do all along. So I think a lot of pressure will be on Kevin Colbert as well.
Well, Kevin or Keith Butler, is that who you're referring to?
Well, I'm saying Kevin Colbert, Keith Butler.
Kevin Colbert got him the players. Now Keith Butler has to do. Well, and I think we said this before, the dollar defense. They're going to be able to run that now. If everyone, if Barron lives up to what he's being portrayed as, and Bush lives even up a little bit up to the hype, then I think that they can run that dollar defense with the 7 defensive backs on the field?
Yes, 7 DBs.
Okay, we'll see how that pans out. So let's go to the next round. They didn't have a round 2 pick. Their first pick in the 3rd round was wide receiver from Toledo, Deante Johnson. What are your expectations for the... He's not really speedy. He's just a quick little guy. Deante Johnson, what are your expectations? What are the fans' expectations?
I think the fans expect him to be not a central piece, but a guy that contributes.
Uh-oh. I think we lost Lance. Oh, my gosh. Right in the middle of his sentence, he was getting ready to talk about where he feels Deante Johnson falls. We'll hopefully get him back on here. Deante Johnson, as I watch more game film of him, the one thing I notice is that he has a very similar skill set of Antonio Brown. He's not huge, he's not ridiculously fast, but he has really good skills off the line of scrimmage. So it's going to be really difficult to jam this player. And it was really difficult to jam Antonio Brown. So in the National Football League, where all defensive backs want to get in their face and all they want to do is try to disrupt your pattern from the moment the ball is snapped, he's extremely well versed at adapting and adjusting. That's a huge plus. Okay. Secondly, the one thing he also is very good at is route running. I don't know if there's a route that this guy doesn't run well. You watch film of him, and I know that we're talking MAC football here. We're not talking about the Big 12 or even Pac 12, which is an awful football conference. But still, you're talking about a guy that's in the MAC, and Lance is back on, and he's like, he heard my Pac 12 reference there. But I think that he can play both inside and outside. This is per the Steelers' Darrell Drake, the wide receiver coach. Lance, is this guy going to see the field much outside of special teams his rookie year?
I don't think so. I think the fans' expectation is that he's going to be somewhere in the middle between Juju and James Washington. But I don't think he's going to see the field that much, especially if James Washington becomes the guy that they want him to be.
Yeah, that's a big if.
I mean, if James Washington is the guy that they want him to be, I mean, where's he going to slot in? Is he going to take Moncrief off the field? I mean, he's going to take James Washington off the field. He's going to take Eli Rogers off the field. I mean, when you look at the Steelers wide receiver core, the best one is Juju. The other guys are guys. So, is he going to make that impact like Juju? I don't know. I don't think so. But I think the fans' expectation will probably be unrealistic regarding him, just because, namely, that the Steelers have had so much success with drafting wide receivers that I think the fan base thinks that wide receivers with the Steelers are simply plug and play. We go get them. They represent and they play fantastic football. Wallace, Sanders, Brown, Juju. I mean, those are four guys right there. They went and got those guys, became superstars. So I think they probably have that sort of expectation. But I think they're kind of stacked at wide receiver. And if he's playing a lot and James Washington isn't, that's a problem. I would like for this guy to come along slowly, and maybe he's the answer next year or the year after that. But I don't think this guy's going to do anything more than be a special teams guy.
Yeah, I think if you want to give a comparison, go back to Antonio Brown's rookie year. He made the team, but he was a return guy. And he didn't play much. By the end of his rookie season, and especially his second year, they had specific packages for him that they like to run. Everyone remembers the catch against the Ravens where he pinned the football against his head. That was kind of his the big time moment. I think it was in that, was it the same game or what was it? The Jets. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lance. Wasn't it the Jets AFC Championship game where he caught that third down pass? It was Brown that caught the third down pass to seal the game. And everyone was like, wow, they threw it to him. Ben trusted him that much. I could see it being a very similar progression. Coming out of training camp, special teams player, return guy. Maybe they have a couple packages for him in specific situations. They might, slowly move him into the lineup. But I agree with you. I don't see him being an impact player from day one.
I mean, if he gives you what Antonio Brown gave you in Tennessee, I believe the first time he touched the ball and he returned it for a touchdown, I'd be happy. I mean, have an impact in a return game, switch field, change field position, be that type of guy where the Steelers legitimately have a threat in the return game. And if he could upgrade their return game, I think that's a lot to add to this team because, again, this team has to replace 90 points. Flip field position, make it easier for the offense on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I agree. And so let's go to their second, third round draft pick. That is a defensive back from Michigan State, Justin Lane. He is a converted wide receiver. It was a wide receiver. They turned him into a defensive back. Really long arms. Did an article about that this week about his wingspan was greater than like Nick Bosa. But still, what would be the expectations, both yours and the fan bases, heading into this season?
Well, the fan base is always going to be tilted. He's going to be the next Ike Taylor, according to the fan base. We love his length, his arm distance. He has long phalanges. I mean, that's the fan base. Me, I don't really have expectations for Mike Tomlin drafted corners. I don't. I think he'll be one of these guys like Cam Sutton and the rest of these guys, and he'll probably just be another guy on the list that got drafted by Tomlin as a DB that is just a DB that ends up doing nothing.
Yeah, well, I don't know. The Cam Sutton comparison I could see. And there are reports, by the way, that Cam Sutton is going to be challenging Mike Hilton for that slot job this year. That they were not happy with Hilton after 2018. That he was, if you look at his stats, they weren't as good in compared to his 2017 self. But so it's going to be interesting. I don't see him playing this year that much unless they have a rash of injuries in the secondary. The question is who does he beat out? Brian Allen, Artie Burns. I don't know if we had talked about this last week, but here's a question for you, Lance. We know the Steelers didn't pick up Artie Burns' fifth-year option. No shock there. But does he make the 53-man roster this year?
Yes. Simply because you need cornerback depth. I mean, you need veteran cornerback depth. I mean, you don't want – I mean, the one thing about Artie Burns that he has going for him, he's played starting snaps, and he has played at an average level. So, I mean, he does have that, and he's a first rounder. So being a first rounder, that sort of protects him. I mean, teams don't like to throw egg on their face and cut first rounders because that shows that, we absolutely totally messed up on this pick. I mean, for the fact that he's a first rounder, that may get him on the roster. I don't think he has a future with the Steelers. And going back to the Mike Hilton thought, that's interesting hearing that Cam Sutton's going to challenge for him. And it goes back to my point about Artie Burns. Being drafted really helps you when it comes to roster construction. I mean, that means that they put a lot of time and a lot of resource into you. And, teams want to save face. They don't want to seem like they got it totally wrong when it comes to the evaluation. So regardless of the fact that Cam Sutton wasn't a first or a second round draft pick, he was a drafted player by the Steelers. Now, you would think that Mike Hilton's game tape and his solid play over the last couple of years would help him in that manner. But I'm telling you, teams always try to get their drafted guys onto the field. It confirms what they thought about these players. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Mike Hilton and Hayden are their two most consistent DBs. So if it does, that just gives us more depth or gives the Steelers more depth at the position. So it's a good thing and a bad thing. Competition is always good, but it's interesting to hear that Mike Hilton could be on the outs in terms of a starting nickel position.
It's going to be a something to watch, especially training camp OTAs. And like you said, teams don't want to admit that they made a mistake. They don't want to admit that, like you said, the evaluation was wrong. And so fans should also keep that in mind. Very rarely does Kevin Colbert part ways with a draft pick. But I'll tell you something about Artie Burns. I bet if he's having a decent camp and has a decent preseason, I wouldn't be shocked if they try to move him. Maybe there's a team that's looking for cornerback. If he's having a good preseason, it is kind of look like he's getting over his own mental issues, his own mental hurdles. Maybe they can.
Let's tease this though. Okay, so that's the case. It happens. What compensation would you want back?
Shoot, I'd take a fourth round pick.
You're not gonna get a fourth for Artie.
Fifth.
I'm gonna give you a sixth.
Sure, yeah, let's do a six.
I mean, this is a guy you gave up on, and that's difficult too for him to be moved because getting a six for a first is a step below cutting the guy.
Exactly.
I mean, that's just a.
I bet if it was the six, they probably would just say we're going to keep him.
Absolutely,
we'll keep him this year, and then he can go his own way in free agency. But
absolutely. Yeah, you'll just keep him on a roster for that time when you've got like three corners nicked up.
No, you're right. So let's go with let's keep this moving. Let's go to round 4. Benny Snell Jr. was their 4th-round draft pick, running back out of Kentucky. What do you see from Benny Snell in terms of expectations?
The Steeler fan base will think that he's the next Barry Foster. Given the way that Benny Snell talks, he is absolutely arrogant and with a chip on his shoulders, and I love it. And the way he runs is Steeler style.
Barry Foster wasn't like that though off the field. He wasn't a trash
no. I'm
talker.
saying his physical in between the tackle running style. If Benny Snell runs like he ran in Kentucky, he will be the darling. Him and Bush will be the darlings of this class. They will love Benny Snell in Pittsburgh. You know, physical running backs. You know, he'll have his own pickles and Kroger's if he plays pretty well. Snell pickles, Snell Asics. He'll have pickles and Kroger's and Giant Eagle if he plays well. My expectation for Benny Snell is he will be a red zone guy that will get touches in the red zone. He'll be a guy, I think, to get, 7 to 8 touches per game to spell the Terminator, just to keep the Terminator fresh. Because I've been hearing a lot of different things. Kabali, I think you've talked about it on the site about how the Steelers are going to kind of be in a running back rotation because you've got 3 young backs. It's not going to be run the wheels off the tire or whatever Tomlin said, that there's going to be a rotation. Yeah, cliche, whatever Tomlin said. That so I think Snell is going to be in a position to have the biggest impact of the draft class, along with Devin Bush Jr.
Well, yeah, and you look at the positions they play. That's why. I mean,
Right.
Deante Johnson in a different scenario could be an impact player, but he's stuck behind a pretty loaded depth chart right now. I'm curious to see how they actually deploy Snell and what he does. I don't know about his pass protecting skills, his pass catching skills. I do know he's a downhill hard runner. So anyway, how they work Jalen Samuels into this mix, it's to be interesting to see. But I think the Steelers fan base is going to love Benny Snell. He's the one that coined his own phrase, Snell, yeah. He has that He actually has that tattooed on his body, I think. So,
well, let me give the young man a tip. Register it before someone starts selling Snell yeah t-shirts and you get no money, because I'm gonna guarantee you somebody in Steeler Nation has a hashtag Snell yeah t-shirt loaded and ready to go, and he's not going to own that phrase. Do like Pat Riley and patent or trademark 3-peat. So every time 3-peat's on a shirt or anything, Pat Riley gets money.
Hey, that's good business.
Great business.
Forward thinking. But I agree with you. I think Benny Snell could be a really good player, could be a really good asset to the Steelers. And mainly what I view him as is a player that can keep James Conner healthy. Take some of the touches away from him. They don't need, and the cliche was, they don't need to run the wheels off of him. Lance, make sure you get that right next time. But still, I think he could be good. So now I think those picks are pretty self-explanatory. But now you get into the 5th, 6th, and 7th round, a little bit more dicey. In the 5th round, Zach Gentry, tight end, Michigan. He was recruited as a quarterback and turned into a tight end. I think he's 6'8" tall. He's a giant of a man. What are your expectations for this guy?
Practice squad, bag of Fritos.
Even a tight end, they need those. They need that position.
Practice squad, bag of Fritos.
Okay, so that's fine. So that's the first draft pick you have not making the 53-man roster.
Yes.
Okay. I think he's going to make the team. I just don't think he's going to perform as well as some people think. They need tight ends, but they're going to lean on Grimble and they're going to lean on McDonald. And if they need any extra tight end help after that, they're going to look at a tackle. So they'll have an extra tackle one as an extra blocker. But I don't know much about this guy. I'm not gonna lie. He's big. He's he actually moves pretty well, but he just doesn't seem that athletic. So I do want to tease this now for on the website behindthesteelcurtain.com. I've reached out to the websites that cover these players in college, and I've asked them a slew of questions. And when I get those responses, I'm going to turn them into articles for behindthesteelcurtain.com. And Gentry was probably one of the most intriguing ones when I talked to the Michigan guy about like what does he do well, what doesn't he do well. So make sure you're on the lookout for that. All right, let's get through these next three all at once. Actually, let's go next four. Sutton Smith, Isaiah Buggs, Ulysses Gilbert, and Derwin Gray, linebacker, defensive tackle, linebacker, and offensive lineman. Are there any of these players that you see as being anything more than A, practice squad, or B, special teams?
No, they'll all be either practice squad or special teams. I think the only player would be the defensive lineman, could have a possibility, could work into a rotation there as a defensive lineman. I mean, if you had LJ Walton as a guy that was playing for you, maybe if this kid can play, he could slot in as a rotation piece in the defensive line and play special teams. But I think the other guys are practice squad or special teams guys.
Out of those four players, do you see any of them not making the team?
Not making the team. Are you considering just being on the practice squad, not making the
Practice
team?
squad, you have to be cut and then signed to the practice squad once you clear the waiver. So,
Yeah, that's right. So, I think the defensive lineman will make it. I think the other guys will get cut and be on the practice squad.
wow. I'm going to go and say that Sutton Smith makes the team, Buggs makes the team, Gilbert makes the team. They're all going to be Buggs will be depth on the defensive line. LT Walton, not LJ Walton. I don't think he'll be back. He's a free agent right now, anyways. And I think that Derwin Gray has a chance. I think he's going to be a practice squad guy. So I have 7 of the 9 picks making the 53-man roster. And expectations can change. You know, if Zach Gentry goes out there and is a awesome red zone target for the Steelers because he's 6'8" and they throw the jump ball to him, and hey, that's fine. That's great. He exceeded my expectations, but at the same time, I'm not really expecting that to happen. So, all right, Lance, last topic here before we call it a show, and it's back to what we started with, Ben Roethlisberger. Recently on ProFootballTalk.com, Mike Florio, he took some comments made by former Patriots tight end Bennett, Martellus Bennett, I believe, about how Bill Belichick is really tough on Tom Brady, calls him out regularly. And they added a little bit about what other quarterbacks could use some tough love. And what was the first name? Ben Roethlisberger. Do you think Roethlisberger should get some tough love?
No, I don't. I mean, I think people think I would say yes, he does. But I mean, like any relationship, if the relationship has been managed in a certain way for a certain amount of time, it shouldn't change. He gets a soft touch. I mean, him and Mike Tomlin's relationship are hook and step. Mike Tomlin never criticizes Ben Roethlisberger in public. You never see it, and it should continue. Why shouldn't it continue? He's been a hell of a player. You know, he's accomplished a bunch of things, and he's won Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers a tremendous amount of games. However, he is managing Ben Roethlisberger behind the scenes. That should continue. I mean, the guy is 37 years old in the last 3 years of his contract. You can't get brand new all of a sudden. I mean, it is what it is. They are a marriage, and this is how they manage it, and it works. So I don't think the tough love and all that stuff needs to change or whatever. I think the difference with that Florio isn't seeing with Belichick and Brady is this is how Belichick has managed Brady his entire career. This is how it started from the beginning. That's how they manage their relationship. So it's fine. That's the expectation that Brady has, that Belichick's going to call him out. But we saw, if those reports were true, that there were even issues in how that was going late in the career, that was even fraying their relationship to a certain point. They were able to still focus and concentrate on football, because obviously they won a Super Bowl. But you just manage the relationship as you started it and as you've been consistent with it. So it's consistent for Belichick to manage Brady that way and Tomlin to manage Ben Roethlisberger that way. And so I don't think it should change.
No, I don't think it should change drastically or dramatically. I think it should. I think after what's gone on the past few months, years, that there, I think Tomlin needs to say, "Look, man, we've got some expectations here that we can't have that happen again." And so whether it's the leading the NFL in interceptions or whether it's all the team turmoil stuff, I'm not saying you totally change the dynamic of the relationship, but at the same time, you have to understand that some things have to change, and I think that would be one of them. So
So let
I
me ask
see
you,
I see
let me
both
ask you this,
sides.
Jeff. Let me ask you this, Jeff. Do you think a conversation between Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger led to what we think Ben Roethlisberger is going to do about his radio show and the cancellation of it? And if that's the case, that's perfect.
I think it goes above Tomlin. I think Art Rooney might have had a conversation with both of them and said, "We can't have this happen all the time." And there has been the funny thing about this is that there has been zero reports from 93.7 The Fan or Ben Roethlisberger himself about the radio show. No one saying that it's canceled or anything like that. It was just that one initial report. Now, if you recall last year, Ben Roethlisberger made waves when he was on the radio, his radio show, talking about who when they selected Mason Rudolph and how he doesn't feel like it was a wasted pick essentially. So the fact that they didn't have him on, maybe that's a sign of things to come. But I do think that the Steelers probably, I think they've probably done this with several players, sat down and said, "Look, we've got to get our ducks in a row." Period. So yeah, that's what I think. That's just my opinion though.
Okay.
So, our last thing I forgot we were going to talk about this, and that was my Steelers burning question, which is a solo show I do every Wednesday night. Yeah, Wednesday night live here on YouTube. And this week, I asked, is Devin Bush going to live up to the hype? And I wanted to get your take on that, Lance, and whether you think, and when I say the hype, I'm talking about the fan base's hype surrounding this
Right.
player. And before you say that no player will ever meet the fans' level of expectation, so to speak, what do you think that he'll live up to some of the hype, or do you think he's going to fall short because it's unrealistic?
I think he'll live up to the hype, one. And I say that because if he's as good as Lawrence Timmons, he will live up to the hype, in my opinion. But I think if you ask the fan base if Devin Bush becomes as good as Lawrence Timmons, will that be enough? And I think the fan base won't think that that's enough. I think the way that he's been hyped as possibly the next Derrick Brooks, maybe the next great inside linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the way the Shazier narrative has become post-injury, that's a lot of hype to live up to. Not only does he have to be the next great Steeler inside linebacker, but he's replacing a guy whose value has been escalated given the fact of his injury and what he's going through. So he's trying to fill the shoes of a guy that's become a Steeler legend. Ryan Shazier has become a Steeler legend, largely for stuff that he's done on the field, but largely for the stuff that happened to him on the field. So I think he's going to fall short of that hype because I think the Steeler fan base is going to put the hype bar is going to be so high. I don't think he can live up to it, but I think he can live up to the hype because what you see on film, he brings a lot of the characteristics in a better athletic set than Lawrence Timmons does. And if he's as good as Lawrence Timmons or slightly better than Lawrence Timmons, the hype is real. He would have lived up to the hype, in my opinion. You get a starter that plays a bunch of games, plays at a high level, is dependable and durable, and lines up and plays for you week in and week out. So if the bar is Lawrence Timmons, absolutely. But if the bar is Derrick Brooks, Absolutely not.
Not yet, anyways. I mean,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, it's going to take time. That's the thing for me. And we talked about this before on this show. Is I just want him to be in the right place at the right time. If he's doing that, that's a huge step in the right direction. He can still play instinctual. He understands where he's supposed to be. Um, I don't need him to make all the splash plays early in his career. Would it be awesome? Yes, that would be awesome. But at the same time, inside linebacker is not a position where a lot of players just come in and just dominate. So I'm also going to temper those expectations. But I think that eventually he'll live up to the expectation, the hype. But I think early on, he's just because it seems like every first round draft pick in the Steeler Nation's uh, grand scheme of things is he's not because they never do. They never do. When was the last player that lived up to the hype? Was it T.J. Watt? Maybe
Yeah. Yeah.
because he had a good rookie
TJ's
season.
he's living up to the hype. So I mean, answer that question for me. If Devin Bush at the end of the day is every bit as good as Lawrence Timmons and slightly better, has he failed as a player?
Hell no, no.
Exactly.
Timmons was a great player.
Exactly. That's a great draft pick.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that'll be enough for the fan base. But I will say, in terms of living up to the hype, part of it is you have to go to an organization that's going to put you in position to live up to the hype. And that's happening. He's in an organization that's stable coaching, that's successful, and they want him to succeed. He is filling a huge position of need. So they're going to give him every opportunity to be that guy on the football field. Whereas you could go to a place like Oakland, you could go to a place like Arizona, you could go to these other franchises that change coaching staffs every 2 or 3 years. Expectations change. The way they view football changes. All that changes. So it's hard to make that type of impact and live up to that hype. He's in a perfect position to live up to the hype. We just got to now see it on the football field.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. Just remember, folks, after the 2003 season, people were calling Troy Polamalu a bust. Just remember that. They said he was a bust because he didn't play that much. He was just like a special teams guy. We all know how that played out, right? Would it be, one more year until he can be enshrined into Canton?
First ballot.
So,
will Troy show up? Here's a question. Will Troy have the shortest Hall of Fame induction speech in NFL history?
I don't know. See, he got inducted into the Polynesian Hall of Fame, Football Hall of Fame, and his speech wasn't ridiculously short. I was shocked.
Wow.
He talked about his Polynesian heritage and how important it is to him, and things of that nature. So I don't know. It'll be interesting.
I'm gonna go short. I'm gonna go shortest and hit because that's home, right? That's home for him, right? Like he feels comfortable. That's home for him. I'm gonna go with he wore 43, so I'm gonna go with 7 words at minimum. I'd like to thank the Pittsburgh Steelers and Steeler Nation.
No way, man. He's gonna give at least a paragraph on his faith.
Yes.
He's gonna talk about his family and his wife.
Yes.
He's gonna talk about Dick LeBeau. He's gonna talk about you. So you have all these things that are. It'll be short, but I don't think it's gonna be 7 words at a minimum.
He's such an interesting guy.
Hasn't been back. He's got a beef with the team.
Yeah, but in true Troy fashion, he won't say it.
No,
he'll keep that between him and the team, which is how you should do it.
Everyone was surprised when they did the Super Bowl 43 anniversary last year. He didn't come back. James Harrison came back, Kiesel. Heck, they even had like Bryant McFadden come back. These guys that you're like, I forgot they even played for the Steelers. They were rolling back. So, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But that's a discussion for another time. Lance, anything to add before we call it a show?
No. Happy Cinco de Mayo to all you guys out there. If you do get festive on Cinco de Mayo, I had copious amounts of tequila and margaritas and street tacos in my house last night. I won't go hard because of work tomorrow, but I went hard yesterday.
What's your tequila of choice?
I like Patron, but I don't do Patron for mixing. I like Casadores and Yeho. But last night I think I did Trace Agaves.
Patron just on the rocks is good for me. You know, just if you're just sipping the tequila.
Look at you, big baller Jeff, doing a Patron Silver.
It
I
is.
see
It
you.
is. Yeah, it has been a long time since I've partaken in that.
Yeah.
I had an event with that. We'll put it that way. I had an event.
Hey Jeff, let's do this. Look, I challenge you to do 2 sips and then do a podcast.
2 sips on. I'd have to do the sips on the podcast. Well, maybe we'll do.
Yes, yes.
I don't have any Patron in my house. I've got other tequila, but no, I'll have to go. I'd have to go get some. But anyways, maybe we'll do like a bet or something. The week 1 bet. You pick
Yes,
against the Steelers, and I pick the Steelers to win.
yes, yes. Now, do you like Añejo, Reposado? Is there
I can't say I'm a connoisseur of tequila.
okay? I like Añejo the best. I really like Casadores. That's kind of the browner tequila. Reposado is white. I believe Patron is Reposado. I know they call it silver, but I think that's Reposado or Blanco.
Okay. So, hey, Steeler fans are out there listening. You got your tequila talk in for the day on Cinco de Mayo. You're welcome. So,
Yeah.
With that said, as Lance always says, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. We appreciate all your love. Yes. We'll see you next time on another episode of The Standard is the Standard.